watch collector. I spent unconscionable amounts of money and time on watches that cannot be conscioned. And yet, I'll be the first to point out the frivolity of watches. They're silly, and most of the time, they're not very useful. And ironically, the more expensive they are, the more useless they are. Case in point, this somewhat affordable watch that is actually really useful. Far more useful than watches 10 or even 100 times the price of this one. Unless looking rich is a feature, which maybe it is for some people. This watch won't make you look rich, but it might make you look smart. This is the new generation of Citizen Skyhawk. There are some notable and some welcome changes here. This was announced just a few weeks ago, and it's a big deal. I'm not sure a lot of luxury watch suckers like me understand how popular watches like this are. The market for feature-rich, quartz, solar-powered watches is huge. Once I kind of knew about Anna-Digi watches like this, I started seeing them everywhere. The Citizen Skyhawk and the Skyhawk watches have been around for over 30 years, and what they've always had in common was that they're watches with analog hands and digital displays. Nerds like me call these watches Anna-Digi watches. The Skyhawk line really started in 1994 with this Navahawk. Analog hands, digital LCD screens, and a slide rule bezel. I'll get to that soon. Then in 2000, Citizen launched the Skyhawk, which was an eco-drive version of the Navahawk. Very similar to the Navahawk watches, but powered by light instead of by a replaceable battery. And there have been many, dozens of Skyhawks since then. So many, too many, and all with so much stuff on the dials and bezels. The amount of money that Citizen has spent on ink over the decades doesn't matter. And now for the first time after all these years and all these references, the Skyhawk has a single display, and it's a really good display. Until now, all the Navahawks and Skyhawks have had multiple displays on the dial, and they weren't super crisp ones. For both of these reasons, the number of digital displays and the quality of those displays, for both of those reasons, I found previous generations of these Citizen watches kinda hard to read, but to me, this new watch is the most legible yet. There are 3 new Skyhawk watches, and they all have the same movement and the same design. The blue dial that I have here, the black dial, and the black one with dark gray metal. The standard stainless steel references are $795, and the one with the dark gray steel is $850. The tech that's used to darken the more expensive watch is ion plating, which is a kind of physical vapor deposition, or PVD, so that watch is probably going to be more scratch resistant. All of the new Skyhawk watches are 43mm across, 14mm thick, 48.5mm long, and they have 22mm lugs. They have sapphire crystals, and they weigh about 175 grams on the full bracelet. They have 200 meters of water resistance, and they do not have screw-down crowns. My wrist is 7 inches around. Maybe you didn't know that. 43mm sounds big, but 48.5mm long is relatively short across the wrist for a watch with this diameter. If anything is going to be an issue for some wrists, it's going to be the weight. For most people, taking some links out, it'll be around 160 grams, and that's manageable, just kind of depends on what you're used to. And this does have 3 micro adjustment spots in the bracelet clasp. The bracelet is adjusted with pins and collars, and it's an extra pain because each link is made of 5 parts, 5 separate parts. The 3 brush parts and the 2 polish parts are all separate pieces. So you're not going to want to change the links often. The micro adjustment holes on the clasp are hopefully going to save you from the horror of losing any tiny collars in your carpet. Not that I ever have or would, but I hear it happens to most guys at some point. And the movement in this watch, the U830, is a totally new movement. It's an eco-drive movement, meaning that it absorbs light through the dial. That's a common feature in watches, but it shouldn't be overlooked. Solar-powered watches they're kind of amazing. In the same way that the accuracy and affordability of quartz watches is usually taken for granted these days, I think photovoltaic watches are similarly overlooked, and they shouldn't be. The vast majority of life on Earth gets energy from the sun, either directly or indirectly, so why not watch life? But this U830 movement does not receive signals from an atomic clock like some of the Citizen AT watches. AT stands for atomic timekeeping. I kind of expect that there may be a new Skyhawk with atomic timekeeping at some point, but this one ain't it. On this watch, you have to set the time yourself like some sort of cave person. This watch has a 1/100 of a second chronograph which I don't think is terribly useful, but it also has an alarm, a countdown timer from 99 minutes, a world time function, and it's a perpetual calendar. So once you set the right time, date, and year, you won't need to adjust it at the beginning of a month or even during a leap year. The time will drift a little like with any quartz watch, up to 15 seconds per month, but it'll be mostly accurate for longer than you are because you'll be dead. That's the joke. It's perpetual, you are not. Now about this display. This is a new type of display that I hadn't heard about. It's called a memory in pixel display, sometimes shortened to MIP, and it's called that because each pixel can kind of remember its state. And this is a game changer because it means that the display doesn't need to be constantly refreshed by the device's processor to keep an image on the screen, and that saves a lot of power. The display is also super crisp and it's large. This watch with a single screen has more screen real estate than previous generations of Navihawks and Skyhawks with multiple screens. Citizen decided that this screen would have a negative display, which I like. Negative meaning that the text is light and the background is dark. The screen can briefly be turned to positive, but only when you're changing functions. Now, it took me a while and a few PDFs to figure out how to use this watch. The crown on this watch isn't meant to be turned. I mean, if you do turn it, you're not doing anything useful. The crown is really a pusher. Pressing the crown in puts you briefly into a complication changing mode, and you can change those complications with the upper and lower pushers. You can go between world time, alarm, timer, and chronograph. Pressing and holding the crown is how you adjust things, and what you adjust depends on what mode or complication you're in. It's weird and it's a little unintuitive, but I got the hang of it after a few minutes, and if I can do it, then so can your learning impaired dog, and definitely you can figure it out. My favorite display option here is the dual time display. Once you set the watch and you set your world time city, you can choose any other city to display side by side on the screen. At this point, what are you using the watch hands for though? I don't know, and quit harassing me, shoot man. Now there's also a kind of complication on the bezel. It's a slide rule. Old people, you know what this is and how it works. Slide rules can basically be used as rudimentary calculators. It works by aligning the numbers on the rotating bezel with the numbers on the inner bezel. Slide rules like this don't tell you the order of magnitude, so you might have to add a 0 to your number, but they're kinda useful for converting things like stupid, worthless Celsius to amazing and perfect Fahrenheit, stuff like that. In the time I've been wearing this watch, I didn't really use the slide rule bezel, but I did use most of the other complications, the ones that are part of the new U830 movement. And it's watches like these, especially Anna-Digi watches, that make me kind of question luxury watches and make me question fully digital watches. I own an Apple Watch Ultra 2 and a few digital Casios, but I still really like the look of hands on watches. I think they look good, and I find that time kind of easier to read on analog watches because time is shown by proximity in a way that they're not with digital numbers. But you know, I like features. Who doesn't like features? So analog digital watches like this, with a lot of complications, in some ways this is the best of both worlds.